Kakadosh Boker Tov, we're going to be continuing on Daf Kuf Kav Gimel Amud Aleph, 123a1. So here we were speaking about the halachot of Muktzeh, and we're asking, Eitve Abaye le Rabba. Abaye comes and he asks the question from Rabba. Medocha. So we're talking about, it's like a type of a mortar. Either they come and they crush, whether types of different, spices, or here it says it's made for garlic. Im yeshba shum, if it has garlic, metaltelin ota, so they are able to carry it. V'im lav, and if not, metaltelin ota. Okay, so again, one more time, 123.1. Okay, so the Gemara said that Abaye comes and he asks Rabba that if you have this mortar which is made to crush the garlic, so you're allowed to carry it because of the garlic. But if not, then you're not allowed to carry it at all. So Amalei, says, right, Rabba, Hamani, who's this writer going? Like Rabbi Nechemia, the Amar and cleaning tal tzorach tashmid shor. According to Shitat Rabbi Nechemia, we're going to see this a few times throughout the Gemara. Shitat Rabbi Nechemia, even though we don't paskin like it, is that a utensil may only be carried for its designated usage. Okay? So 8 so they're going to ask now another question. Here it says, we're talking about, let's just read the brackets just to understand what we're talking about. But Shammai says that you're not allowed to carry this ali, right, which is basically like, it's like a little tiny pole, which they used to cut meat on it. Because of Bet Hillel Matilim, Bet Hillel permitted, this is in Beitzah. Veshavin, but they both agree, She'im kitzev alav basar, that if you are going to come and you are going to put meat on top of it, it's a sulat after you use it. So you see from here that the kli which is made for kli shenachto yisur, you're not allowed to move it, even l'tzorech heter, even for a permitted use. So again, this is the concept. Remember, kli shenachto yisur, to use it for a permitted, for example, let's say a pen. A pen is a kli shenachto yisur. It's got a prohibited use. Can I use the pen to scratch my head? Can I use the pen to open up a door, right? Or to do something which is permitted? So that's called a kli shenachto yisur. To use it, so you wanted to answer it like Reb Nechemia. This is the same thing. It's brighter to do with the, you're not allowed to use this mortar that you're crushing things with. Everybody agrees with pegs or different things of, how do you translate machbashim? How do you translate it in English?
Spindles, clothes presses, and mallet.
Okay. The Kevin, the Kapi, the Laihu, right? Even after you told me, I still don't know what all of them are. No, the spindle, okay, that makes sense. The truth is, maybe I could check here. We have a picture. No, here it just speaks about no. It is here. Rashi says they're kliorgin. Siche are the yetidot, or the pegs, which are the pegs which are the amudim. The ziare are the kanim shebasheti. This is the ziare. This one. Okay, and the last one, which is mezore, is the koved.
It's like a hammer, I think. It's a wooden hammer.
Yeah, interesting. So it's basically like this utensil, so you have all three. 1, 2, 3. Okay, those are the three different things, the ziyare, all these things. So the kevan, the kapti elayu, since people are makpid on it, so it says miachelu makom. They're going to designate a place for it. So haninami, so to here miachelu makom. So basically, at the beginning, he wanted just to answer. It's like Reb Nechemia that it has to be used for a designated usage. Afterwards, he says, listen, there's so makpid not to use it for something else because you don't want it to break. That's it. It's going to become muktzah because of that. So Itmar was stated. Rav Chia bar Abba Amar, Rav Chia bar Abba says, Rav Yochanan, I'm Rav Yochanan, name of Rav Yochanan, Kunash ze'avim, when you have the hammer of gold maker, like goldsmiths, Shaninu. Right? V'shimur Abba says, Kunash besamijin, we're doing of tavlinim, of spices. Okay? So Mandamar, according to Mandamar, that says of besamim, kol sheken ze'avim is going to be, right, it's going to be permitted. But according to Mandamar, the one of the goldsmith, But besamim, people are makpidim. Right? But they don't want to use it at all for anything else because if not, it's going to ruin all the type of the smell and things like that. Okay, fine. Next. Veta kush, veta kirkar. So we're talking about, this was like the fork and the other type of like a form of a shovel. So Tan Rabbanan, we learned to write paga, which is a te'ena, a fig that was not completely ripened. Shetemana beteven, that they came and they put it inside of grain in order that, right? In order for it to continue growing.
Not to be ripened.
No, yeah, to ripen. So it says, the charada shetemana begechalim, or you have like a type of an uga of a food, you put it before the Shabbat, also in the gechalim in the coals in order for it to bake. If part of it is revealed, you're allowed to carry it on Shabbat, but if not, it's a sul tantala. You put it in, and then you don't have to actually be metaltelotam, but you just like move it, and it just moves off by itself. So Amar of Nachman says of Nachman, the lacha is like Rabbi Lazar ben Tedai. Okay, fine. Lemeimra de Sabar of Nachman, tiltul minatzad lo shme tiltul. Are you going to tell me that tiltul minatzad is not considered tiltul? The Amar of Nachman says of Nachman, hay pugla milmala lemata shari, mimata lemala asir. So this pugla, which is like a radish, right? It says from the top to the bottom is permitted, but from the bottom to the top is going to be prohibited. So Hada ben Rav Nachman meiz. So Rav Nachman went and he retracted on that. You're right. He says it's not. He retracted from this teaching that he said that tiltul minatzad is not considered tiltul. Right? What is tiltul minatzad? For example, right on Shabbat, can I carry these keys on Shabbat? So the halacha is that I can. Why? Tiltul minatzad. Tiltul minatzad means I'm not going to take the prohibited one. I'm going to take the permitted one. I'm now carrying this by the side. It's called tiltul minatzad. So now obviously lechatchila I should try not to, so on and so forth, so I put them away. But mitzad halacha, if I needed to, I would be able to as long as I'm doing this. It's called tiltul minatzad. I'm carrying it by the side. So here, what he was trying to say is, I'm carrying the yisur because of something else. I'm moving away, whether it's the food, whether it's a cookie or whatever it is that I was talking about there. And by doing that, I'm moving away the muktzeh. So he says, Rav Nachman retracted. Okay? Fine. So you see from here that Rav Nachman holds that tiltul minatzad is asur, that it's prohibited. Okay? Next. Machat shel yad litol ba et hakos. So you're allowed to take like a type of a needle in order to take out a thorn. So it says, Shalach le Rava bere de Rabba le Rav Yosef. So sent Rava de Rava to Rav Yosef. Yilamdenu Rabbenu. That our teacher, our master should teach us. Machat shenital charara. A machat was taken out the charara, right? Which means that the place of the nekev of the hole was broken. O uktsa, or the chuda, which is basically the point. Ma what's halacha? Amalei, he said, Tinitua, we already learned it. Machat shel yad litol ba et hakotz. We're talking about a machat shel yad to take out the kots, the thorn. What do I care if it's going to be whether it has a hole or it doesn't have a hole in this machat? Okay? So you see from here that for taking out a thorn, you don't care about the whole part in order to put in a thread. You just need the pointy part to take out the thorn. You don't care about anything else. So 8 ways, so they ask a question, machat shenital charara uksa teora. We said the second that it was taken out, whether it's the hole or the pointy part, it's tahor, it's not a utensil anymore. So Abaye says, Tuma Shabbat Karamit. Are you asking a contradiction between Hilchot Tuma and Hilchot Shabbat? Tuma in Acharamit, it's not a utensil anymore. So therefore, it's not going to be Tameh anymore. But to do a Shabbat, what do you Tuma, Kli Maaseh Ba'inan. You need a Kli Maaseh. But to do a Shabbat, you need a Chazbah. You needed something for fitting to do something. Here it's fitting to take out a thorn. So Amar Rava says, Man de kamoti shapi kamoti. The one that asks the question asks a very good question. Because to do a tum'ah, it's not considered an object. So to do it with Shabbat, it's not considered an object. Right? So Meitve, so they're going to ask another question. Here it says you're allowed to come and carry this needle on Shabbat, whether it has a hole or it doesn't have a hole. They didn't say only if it's going to be tum'ah. So tirkama Abaye liba dirava. So taught Abaye liba dirava. Begulme askinan. We're talking about begulme. Zimnin nimla chalayhu. Right? Because sometimes, right, they're going to ask, Umashvilu mana. They're going to teach you mana. Aval hachabar over here. Then you tell charara uksa. But at the end of the day, you have that he took off the charara or the uksa, which is basically the whole part or the other part. Adam zurkal ben gruto. People are just going to throw it out. Meaning the second that the part of the needle broke, you're not going to keep. You're going to throw it out. So therefore, it's not a kli. Whether to do with Shabbat or to do with tum'ah. By both, it's not considered a utensil. The second that part of it broke, you're going to throw it out. Fine. Asube yinuka. So in order to form the evarim of a child, which means usually sometimes when children are born, their body gets a little bit deformed. So in order to fix it around, Rav Nachman says it's asur, and Rav Sheshet says that it's going to be permitted. Amar Rav Nachman comes and he says, Mina minillah, how do we know this? The Tanam is we learned in the Mishnah. En osin kufkav yunam ubet apikutvin b'Shabbat. You're not allowed to make this type of a potion to cause vomits, which means that they used to drink it in order to empty out their stomach. Rav Sheshet says, Hatam lavorche. There, it's not normal to do such a thing. Here, it's normal that a child is born. You have to make sure that the limbs and everything are back into place. So Rav Sheshet says, how do we know this? Right? The Tanam is we learned in the Mishnah. As to fix, right? So from here you see that there's no isur to fix a human being. Meaning to take out a thorn of a human being is not a sur. Nachman says, no. Hatam pakid. There it's inside, and therefore when you're taking it out, you're not fixing anything. Here it's not pakid, it's not inside. So therefore, it's the part of the body itself. So therefore, that's why it is considered like a fixing of something. Okay? Fine. Next Mishnah. Until you're clear?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Kaneh shel zetim. We're talking about a kaneh shel zetim, which is basically to turn over the zetim, to turn over the olives, right, which are after crushing them. So therefore, they had this kaneh. Let's see if we have a picture of this kaneh. Here. This is the kaneh of the zaitim. Right after crushing them, you had this to turn them around. This is the kaneh of the zaitim. Okay? So says halacha, the Mishnah. Kaneh shel zaitim, im yesh kesher berosho, if it has a kesher at the beginning, at the top, which is like a pkak. Okay? So this pkak is this. That's the pkak. If it has at the top of the reed, of this long reed. Okay? So if it has this pkak at the top, it's mekabel tumah. If not, it's not mekabel tumah. Benkach ubenkach, you're allowed to carry it on Shabbat. So says the Gemara, Amai, why is it mekabel tumah? It's not, doesn't have a receptacle. Usually, if it doesn't have a receptacle, it cannot receive anything. It doesn't mekabel tumah. Pshuteklietz, right? It's a pshuteklietz. Pshuteklietz, mekabel tumah. It's not mekabel tumah because it doesn't have a receptacle. So my tama, what's the reasoning? Dumia the sack pain, but you need it like a sackcloth. So he says, Tana Mishmedam Rechemia, Beshashim Apech, Bazitim of Choveroebo. He says, no. As many times when you're turning around with the olives, what happens is that you see, like Bechalal Sheberashot Hashem and Zav Min Azitim, you come and you see the oil come down. So you check if it's already, fitting to stop or not. So it comes out that it's hollow, and therefore it does receive inside of it things. So that's why it's going to be Mekabel Tumah, because it's hollow, and on the inside it does receive things. Okay, next Mishnah. Rabbi Yosef says, all the utensils, you can move them on Shabbat, except for the Shora Gadol, right? The Masad is it's like a saw. Let me see if I have a picture here. Okay, I have a picture of the Atetshel Machrisha, which is basically what they use for the plowing. This is the olden day plowing. Right, nowadays, obviously, they have like these machines that do everything at once, but this is the olden days, how they used to plow. That's the Atetshel Machrisha, but it doesn't give me a picture of the Masar. Masar, how does he translate the Masar? The Masor Gadol. It's like a saw?
Coulter. The first one, a large saw.
A large saw.
And the second one is a coulter. I don't know what is it.
Coulter. Okay. It's like a knife, that they used to make. It's like a knife that used to go on the ground and make the furrows or make like a plowing.
Okay. Okay, yes.
Okay, that's the first one was a saw. Fine. So Amr of Nachman says of Nachman, Hai uchla de katzre. This kli minukav, right, which is basically like a utensil, which is minukav, which has holes, right, of kovsim. It's this one. It's like basically for washing. It's got the holes. It's like a strainer. I don't know you want to call it in English.
Launderer.
Right. It's used for the launderers.
Riddle. Launderer's riddle.
Riddle. Okay. So it says here, kiatet shel machrisha damya. So this is like this. It's a sul betiltul because it's the same thing like this knife used for the plowing. Okay. So he says, Amar Abaye says, Charba dush kape, which is a sakin sharatzanim. It's like the knife which is used by the ones that deal with the skins. The sakina dishkavta, or the knife which is used for the butchers. The chatzina dinagre, or an axe used from the ones which are, the carpenters. It's the same thing. People are makpidim on them. Since people are strict on them, you're not allowed to move them. So Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in the Braita, but Yishonayom Limadavim used to say Shosha Kelim to Shabbat. There are 3 kelim that were allowed to be carried on Shabbat. Maksua shel devela, which is a small knife to cut the figs, which are like in the cake. Vezuama listrin shel kedera, or a kaf kedola, which is a big spoon or ladle that they used to come and take off the top part of the tavshil. Vesakin ktana shel kabel shulchan, or a type of a knife on the table. But then they started coming and permitting until at the end they said everything is permitted except for these 2, which is the saw, the large saw, and the knife of the plowing. So what does it mean? What's going on here? That they start permitting it and permitting until everything. What happened? Amar Abaye says, something which was used for permissible use was permitted for tzor gufo. Then they went and they permitted even for the space. Only with one hand, but not with 2 hands. Until they said everything is going to be carried even with 2 hands. So this is the first part of the Gemara. So let me just explain. Is a utensil which is used for heter. A fork, knife, a spoon, right? Cups, plates. All these things are utensils. It's a utensil, but it's used for heter use. You're allowed to eat on Shabbat. You're allowed to drink. You're allowed to do all these things. No problem whatsoever. However, though, there's a klish l'isur, a pen, a phone, right? A fan, right? All these things, right? Any type of, the writing utensils, right? Whether it's office supplies, things like that you do isurim with them. That's called the klish l'isur. So that's number 1. Second rule, there's a difference in tzorah gufo, tzorah mekomot. Tzorah gufo means I'm using the actual body. So, for example, here I have a pen. I'm going to use the pen to scratch my head, right? To clean my ears, to open up a door, to move something. I need the body, the goof, the body of the pen to do something which is permitted on Shabbat, not prohibited, permitted on Shabbat. Okay? The next thing is mekomo. Mekomo is, I have the pen here, but I need the space, the makom. So what do? I move the pen and I put my Gemara here, or I put my plate here. That's called mekomo. Tzorah gufo is more lenient than tzorah mekomo. So here we said like this. At the beginning, Abaye says, they permitted to move a kli shemlachto leheter for gufo, to use it for the body. I'm going to move a plate because I wanted to eat with a plate, but not for mekomo, not for the space of the plate. So I couldn't just stop move a plate for no reason. Now it comes and it says, no, chazru ve'tiru, that I could even use it for the space. So if I wanted the space of the cups or the plates or whatever, I could move them and no problem whatsoever. The next halacha was, then they came and they permitted another thing. So a pen or all these things, letzorah gufo, but not letzorah mekomo. And even when it was letzorah gufo, only with 1 hand. I couldn't carry it with 2 hands. But then they permitted with 2 hands. Amma le Rava, Rava comes and he says, Michti hetiru katani. Does it say hetiru? Right? In ken mali tzorah. What's the difference in tzorah gufo and tzorah mekomo? Rava says, according to Rava, there's no difference between tzorah gufo and tzorah mekomo. It's the same thing. So therefore, they permitted before the klish leheter, tzorah gufo, tzorah mekomo. Then chazru ve'tiru even mechama letzel, from the sun to the shade. which is not at all. It's a lower category, which I'll explain in a second. Then they permitted but not mechama letzel, and only with one person, but not with two people, right? Until they said everything could be carried even with two people. So now, what is mechama letzel? Mechama letzel is, for example, a camera. A camera is a kli shemenato isur. You used to do isur. You take pictures with it, and that's a sur on Shabbat. So what happens now? I could take it to use it for something else, aveter. So I could take the camera to bash something in, even though if it's going to be an expensive camera, no, because then I'm not going to do it. But then it's because it's lacking money, or a very expensive phone. You understand? Then you've got what's called sora gufo. Mekomo is the space. Mechama letzel is not for the body and not for the space. It's for the camera. So, for example, if I forgot the camera outside and it's going to start raining and it's going to ruin the camera, so that's considered mechama letzel. I'm taking away from the sun to the shade, so it doesn't get ruined. Or anything that's mechama letzel is anything that it shouldn't get ruined. So, therefore, right, when Chachamim come and they say the entire concept of mechama letzel, they also permitted it in kli shemenato leheter. So according to Rava, at the beginning, Tzora Gufo, Tzora Mekomo is the same thing. It's mutar. They first permitted it by kli shemenato leheter. Then they came in, they permitted even mechama letzel for that. Right? So I could come and I'm going to move plates or cups or whatever it is, not to use it, not for the space, but even that it doesn't break or it doesn't get ruined. And I'm allowed to do that on Shabbat. Then they came and they permitted kli shemenato leisur for Tzora Gufo, Tzora Mekomo, but only with one human being, not with two. Then they permitted it with two human beings. So Abaye comes and he asks a question against Rava, medocha, when we're talking about a medocha, which is again the mortar to crush, right, for the things. So he says, im yesh bashum, if it has the garlic, you're allowed to move it. If not, not. So you see from here, according to his shita, it's beautiful because you're not allowed to move it, right? Letzora mekoma. But according to you, tzora gufo tzora mekoma is mutar. So why can't you use it if you needed the space? And says the Gemara, says Rava, we're talking about you don't need the space. So mechama letzel, you're needing because you don't want it to break. You don't want a child that will come or it's on the edge or whatever it is. So therefore, it's not that the space, you just don't want it to break. So that's why it's going to be asur. So eitvei, they're going to ask another question. V'shavin shim kitzav lavasar shasul tatlo. Again, if you have this eli, which is this pole, right, on Yom Tov, and you're going to cut meat on top of it, you're using it as a chopping board. So it says asul tatlo. You're not allowed to move it afterwards. So answers the Gemara, Hachanami, so to here, mechama letzel, the same answer. It's from the sun to the shade. So Amar B'chanina says B'chanina, B'mei Nechemia Mechachadai Nishna Mishnah Zod, Dichtiv, V'yimim ha'ema ra'iti v'Yehuda dorchim b'gito b'Shabbat, u'mevim ha'ramot. So they were bringing these things on Shabbat. So Amar Bilazar says, Bilazar, kaninu maklog lustra u'medocha, kulan kodem atrake. All these things were before the permission, right, of the kelim, which means that they were actually going to be used. Let me just see if I have a picture of all these things. Kaninu maklot are this. These are the maklot. And then here you have the nagar sheish prosho glustera. This is the nagar. This is the glustera. Okay, the nagar and the glustera. Okay, this is the glustera laduch o tashum. Okay, then it says kanin. It's not because we already learned in kanim. Lo sidura kanim lo nititlen docha de Shabbat. You cannot put the reeds by the kanim or netilatan dochim ita Shabbat, right? Or nothing pushes off Shabbat. That means you can't be mechalel Shabbat for carrying this. Maklot itram, because we learned in the Mishnah. Maklot dakim v'chalakin ayusham. They had in the Bet HaMikdash different types of maklot. Okay, umanichol ketuvah v'ketav v'chaveros. So they used to put it on their shoulders. V'toleh umafshit, and then they used to skin the animals. Says Rabbi Elazar, we're talking about the 14th of Nisan, the fell out on Shabbat. Maniach yadol katef chavero, used to put his hand on his friend's shoulder. Yad chavero ketvon, each one, and then they used to skin the animal. This is how they were doing it, skinning the animals. You see it, how they skin the animals? Each one, they used to put their hands on the other one's shoulder, and they used to do it. Or with a stick, which that's the maklot. Okay? Fine. Okay, so with that, we finish today's daf, Bezat Hashem.
perfect. Thank you very much, Rav.
Pleasure. We'll be in touch then, okay?